Hello and welcome to Finn and Joe's British Show. I am one of your hosts, Finn.
And I'm Joe, the other host.
I said we are both English teachers from the UK. So, just for this first episode, we wanted to talk a little bit about where we're from, where we're living now, our teaching journeys, and I guess a bit about our teaching styles, our teaching methods. So, the aim, the purpose of this show, this British show, is to teach you all about British life, British culture from the perspective of two Brits. And we are both from different parts of England, so we have different, I guess, upbringing, so different childhoods, and along the way, we'll be teaching you guys some different expressions, some different phrases, some slang as well to help you guys learn a little bit more about British English and the deeper meaning behind it, the deeper context. So, Joe, I guess why don't you start by telling us where you're from?
So I am from a small industrial city called Derby here in the East Midlands. It has quite a rich history of like engineering, manufacturing. So it's the main hub for Rolls-Royce, which is a big company that is now worldwide. Um, It's generally quite a small city. But despite its size, it's quite multicultural. So we're quite an unusual breed here in Derby because we don't really class ourselves as Northern. We are East Midlanders, but our accent and the way we say things and our overall dialect might be considered Northern, I guess.
Okay, yeah, that's interesting. Because for me, so I'm from Cornwall, which is the very bottom of the country. If you imagine the bottom of England, like kind of like a boot, the shape of a foot, the shape of a shoe, Cornwall is at the very bottom in the very southwest. So for me, uh, my definition of northern is a little bit different. So, yeah, for me, you are very definitely northern, and your accent doesn't help your case. But something you just said then, you said about the northeast, and I instantly was like, I struggle between east and west. It always takes me a second to figure out which one is east and which one is west. So I don't know what acronym you learned or what expression you learned when you were in primary school to memorize this, but one popular one is never eat shredded wheat or NESW. Is that the one that you learnt?
Yeah, I think that's pretty much the standard one that every child at primary school learns. I can't think off the top of my head of any others that I learned because I don't know why change something. There's no point breaking something that isn't broken.
Yeah, well, I heard of naughty elephants squirt water, but that's not the one that I learned. It's not the one that I always used. I can't remember where I heard that from, but yeah, that is a little acronym for you guys to remember. North, east, south, and west. Sorry, that was a massive sidetrack. I went off topic quite a lot then. So you're from Derby, you speak like a northerner, so someone from the north, but you're not actually northern.
It's a confusing one, isn't it? Because essentially anyone further north from me, for instance, when I was at university, actually used to laugh and call me a southerner. But for me personally, we are slap bang in the middle of the UK. So we are definitely Midlanders.
Okay, interesting. Yeah, so my girlfriend is from Worcester in the county of Worcestershire, which is that really long name where that sauce. So I know in some countries it's called like English sauce, but here it's Worcestershire sauce. So where is Derby in relation to Worcester and Worcestershire?
So Worcester is still pretty central. So it's very close to places like Birmingham and like the West Midlands. So I'm from the East Midlands. So everywhere from us is generally quite close by. So Birmingham, for instance, is only 40 minutes, 45 minutes drive. And actually being slap bang in the middle of the UK means pretty much any location is roughly 2 hours away, apart from Scotland.
Yeah, Scotland is very, very far away. I don't know how long it would take me to go literally from the bottom to the top. I know that that's quite a big thing, I guess, a big like a challenge for people to go from the very top of Scotland to Land's End. So yeah, excuse me, Land's End in Cornwall, the very bottom, the very southwest of Cornwall, Land's End, and then in Scotland, it's called John o' Groats, and I think the mini name, the I guess the acronym or the nickname is Joggle, which is quite funny. So John O'Groats and then LE Land's End. Um, I know that's a lot of people cycle it, and some people have run it as well. I think it's possible to run it, but it's a lot easier to cycle it, as you could probably imagine. But yeah. So, okay, so let's talk a little bit then about our childhood. So, I guess the first thing is nursery. So, in American English, they would always say like kindergarten, whereas we have nursery. So, what do you remember from nursery? Do you remember anything at all, Joe, from nursery?
So it was quite weird. I don't know, Finn, if you have something similar in Cornwall, but we don't automatically start at nursery. So we actually almost had a thing that was almost like preschool. So it was called playgroup. So it was a local group. I think we could go from when we were like 6 months old, 7 months old, and it was based at the local community centre in the village where I live. And generally, we stayed there for around 2 years before we moved on to nursery. So where I went to nursery was actually a local primary school, so a nursery attached to the local primary school. And here in England, it's generally quite common for primary schools to have a nursery attached to it, a preschool. So I went there. It was a very pleasant experience, but I'll be honest with you, I was a bit naughty. I was a bit naughty. I would always be in timeout. I would be there splashing water over other kids, stealing their toys. I was a pain. I was a complete pain when I was younger, and that carried over into my first day at primary school as well, to be honest. That's a story in itself.
Okay, well, we can move on to that in a minute because I had an interesting first day of primary school as well. But you were a naughty little toddler then, so a toddler, just a small little child, I guess. The stage in between baby and child. I don't know. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, it's generally, we also have an expression, the terrible twos. So generally when children reach the age of 2, that's when this naughtiness starts to kick in. So my little niece, she's 2.5, and it's all about tantrums and running around and causing chaos. So it's the manic period in childhood before, hopefully, touch wood, everything starts to settle down ready for primary school.
Hmm. Yeah, nice. Yeah, so a tantrum. I really like that word because it's a good, not an insult, but you can tell somebody that they are having a tantrum or stop having a tantrum, and it's quite like an insulting way to tell somebody to almost like to shut up or to stop crying about something, stop being upset about something. So, Joe, what actually is a tantrum?
So a tantrum for me is usually when a child, I will use the word child because normally children have them, but some adults might have them, you never know. It's basically when a child doesn't get their own way and they act up. They start misbehaving in response to usually a parent or guardian saying no. So, where I'm from, we did use the word tantrum, but we tended to either use the expression to throw or have a paddy to throw or have a paddy. So I used to be told, like, get off the floor and stop having a paddy. Or a really common slang expression that we use here is mardy. So I used to be accused of being mardy all the time. So this is being grumpy as well.
Aha. Yeah, I've never heard that before actually. That's interesting. So it's like moody in a way, like stop being moody, stop being mardy.
Yeah, yeah. So Mardy is very common. It's very common here in Derby. It's a slang term that's found throughout the northern parts of the UK. And generally it can be a synonym for grumpy. But it often ties in with like throwing a tantrum because they're usually making a lot of noise. Um, Also a nice little expression that we use here is kicking up a fuss as well. So making a scene, making a lot of noise and being really agitated. So yeah, for me personally, being told off as a child, so to be told off is to be reprimanded for bad behavior here in the UK. I would be told off for throwing or having a paddy.
Nice. Yeah, interesting. Well, there's that shows you, well, that wasn't English. I guess that shows you how complicated or how many levels there are to just a language because there are so many words that are just from different dialects. They belong to different areas of the country, or maybe they belong to different generations. I'm sure there's some words or some phrases that we know or that we use that maybe our parents, grandparents would have absolutely no idea that exist. But yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, I've never heard of a Mardi, but throwing or having a paddy or a tantrum is something that I have heard quite a lot. So you were quite you were one of them. You were one of them as a toddler,
Yeah.
picking up a fuss all of the time.
I I was a pain. As most British native speakers would say, I was a bit of a pain in the neck. A bit of a
Mhm.
pain in the neck. So, pain in the neck is a very British idiom, which means to be very annoying. But notice I use a bit of a. So, this little expression will instantly make you sound more British because British people, it's all part of our culture, isn't it, Finn, to not be overly dramatic. So, we like to reduce what we say. So a bit of a. So I'm not 100% a pain and not 100% annoying, but I'm a tiny bit annoying.
Just a bit of a pain in the neck. Yeah, or we also can, I guess, make that expression a little bit more rude as well by saying a pain in the backside or a pain in the bum or a pain in the arse or a pain in the ass as well, depending on your accent. So there are some other variants there depending on I guess how you want how you want to speak, but pain in the neck, very standard, very common. And I guess if you said that at work, you probably wouldn't get some funny looks like you would if you said a pain in the ass. If you called someone or something a pain in the ass. So yeah, You were a pain in the neck. I'm interested about this story now from the first day of primary school. I guess we can exchange our stories.
Yeah, so it was pretty memorable, if I'm honest. So just to paint this picture here for me. So as a child, I was quite a large, chubby child who wasn't particularly gracious. So we were playing a game. We were playing a game with a small group of children. So in British English, this game is called tag or tig, and it basically involves chasing other people around and trying to touch them with the palm of your hand. And if you if you tag them with the palm of your hand, they are what we say it. So it's their turn to go and chase you. But being me, wasn't the most graceful of little kids, little 4-year-olds. So what I thought was, I don't know, I thought it was quite ingenious. Because I couldn't keep up with this girl I was chasing after, I got a skipping rope from the toy box and tied her to a wheelie bin. So a wheelie bin is what we here in the UK put our rubbish. So in American English, they're garbage or trash in. And so she was stuck there for around 10 minutes before the teachers cottoned on to what I'd just done. So to cotton on is a really British phrasal verb. So it means to notice or to realize what I'd done. And let's just say I was in a spot of bother. I was in trouble.
Been a very naughty boy. That's funny. And I'm just trying to work out how old you would have been at this point. So primary school, so that starts at reception. Is that right?
Yeah, so when I was at school, we had staggered starts. So I said four. I think that's a bit of a lie. It would probably be five because I was born in May, so I would have been the January start. I don't know, just a point there, Finn. When you were at primary school, did you have staggered starts?
No, no, I didn't. No, that's interesting. I had no idea that's you're teaching me a lot today. I had no idea that that was a thing either. Yeah, so you were 4 or 5. Yeah, so yeah, I would have been 4 or 5. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. But a 4 or 5 year old tying someone up to a wheelie bin, that shows great potential, I think, from an early age to be able to do that. I think that's quite impressive.
And the irony being, I could barely tie my own shoelaces. So how I managed to tie this little girl to a bin was anyone's guess.
Yeah, very impressive. Very impressive. But I'm presuming that that did not, or that wasn't the start of a habit. You are no longer tying girls to wheelie bins in 2025.
Yeah, let's just put it this way. I definitely didn't meet my current partner by tying her to a wheelie bin because I think I probably would have got a few funny looks and probably a lot worse as well. So thankfully that habit started and ended on my first day of primary school.
That's very funny. That's a good story. I like that. Yeah, so mine wasn't as exciting as that, wasn't as interesting as that. But as a child, I always used to go blackberry picking with my parents. So I guess, I was going to say I was quite good at knowing which ones to pick and which ones not. But if I was 4 or 5, I couldn't have been that good. But I knew which ones were blackberries and which ones were. What are the other one? Is it raspberry? I don't know. There are some other like poisonous ones that often grow next to them or around them. But I knew which were the good ones and which were the bad ones. And I noticed that at the bottom of the playground there was a blackberry bush. And I had taken my new friend, I have no idea who this was, but I'd taken my new friend down to the bush and started picking the blackberries with them. And I must have had, or we must have had red, red berry juice around our mouths, and the teachers must have seen or noticed that we were picking these blackberries as well. And yeah, they we got in trouble. Well, I got in trouble anyway. I think they thought that we were eating poisonous berries, and I ended up being sent home. My mum had to come and pick me up early from school, come and collect me early from school. And I remember her telling me not too long ago, actually, that on our way back, she took me round to the other side of the playground, so on the street, and asked me to point at which berries I had been eating. And sure enough, I had been eating blackberries. I'd been eating the right ones, and my mum was quite happy with that. So took me home early, and everything was fine.
So so yeah, it's a funny old world, isn't it? When you start because it's a whole new environment, isn't it? When you first start school, because obviously when we were in reception, there was still an element of learning through play. Um, but it was still like gradually getting into the more like learning approach. So I don't think even now, I don't know, you might have a different view, but even now, it's quite hard for kids to acclimatize to like the life of school. So they still want to play, they still want to have fun, but at the same time getting into like the right frame of mind to learn was very difficult for me at first.
I think I think that still applies now, or still applied a few years ago at at university, or like starting a job. But yeah, I to be honest, I can't really remember. So I moved from Plymouth. So I said I'm from Cornwall, but that is where I grew up. I think I lived there from the age of 7 or 8 is when I moved from Plymouth, which is a city in Devon, which is actually the county next to Cornwall. But it's right on the border with Cornwall. Um, so I feel like my memories started when I moved. I don't really remember too much in too much detail before that, which is quite weird. I don't know why that happened. Maybe I've kind of blocked it, blocked it out because I know that Cornwall is better than Devon. So, but I know what you mean. I think at kind of every level, even if it is not every year specifically, at every level you think, oh, this is so important, it's so hard, I don't want to do it, and you just want to go back to playing. You think, oh, in primary school it was so much easier, or life was so much better in primary school, and then when you're in college, so I'm sure we will speak about the different levels of education and the UK education system in a different episode. But college, so after school, you think back to school and think, oh, school was so easy. And then so on and so forth. And now all I want to do is go back to university. I don't know if that's the same for you.
Yeah, it's always nice when you think back on your time, particularly for me at university. University was sort of my coming of age where I really came out of my shell. So, nice little expression there to come out your shell. So to stop being nervous, stop being shy, and to actually really develop as a person. And I think a lot of people go through this stage when they go to university because a lot of the times you had your own friendship groups, your own styles. You are still trying to work out your place in the world. You go to university and it's a whole new kettle of fish. It's a whole new experience in itself. And as Finn has already said, we probably will start talking about our times at university in another episode because it was pretty wild, to tell the truth. Pretty wild.
Yeah, yeah, that's one way to put it. So I'm still laughing at the expression a different kettle of fish because I like it and I use it. But for some reason, every time I hear it, it makes me laugh. Another similar one is box of frogs. It's a whole different box of frogs. That one makes me laugh as well. So it's just a whole other world. It's just completely different. That's a yeah, that's a good expression. But yeah, I'm sure we will talk about, I guess, probably in separate episodes, just like school and college, sort of A-level age, and then a whole separate episode just for university, our time at uni. But I guess just for the last maybe like 10 or so minutes, we should talk about us, us now and our teaching, introduce ourselves a little bit more from a teaching standpoint. So I think we have quite similar opinions and approaches, even though our target audience is a little bit different, even though we aim to teach different types of people for different reasons, our opinion and approach to language learning is quite similar. So, Joe, who do you teach? How do you teach? And why do you teach like that?
So I predominantly teach upper intermediate level students, so B2 and above. So these are students who have a good grasp of English. They have a wide knowledge of grammar and have quite an advanced vocabulary. But these people are stuck. So these people are stuck because historically, they've learned English for work. They've learned English to get better jobs, to improve their quality of life. But what a lot of them have done is they've learned English that is far too formal, and they can't understand native speakers. So whether that could be how we speak, slang, phrasal verbs, idioms that we use, and their language is quite rigid, quite formal, quite robotic. So my aim is to try and make them more flexible with their language, to add a bit more of a natural flair. And for me, I teach in a really relaxed style. So how I am here is very much how I am when I'm teaching. So I very, throughout my life, I've always hated the hierarchy between a teacher and a student. I don't like having power over someone else. So I've always made the approach that I'm not a teacher. Yes, I market myself as an integration coach, but for me personally, I'm a friend, I'm someone to chat to. I could be someone you meet in a bar, in a pub, in the middle of a street. And that is my approach to teaching. It has to be relaxed. It has to be an environment that is calm and is inclusive, but also allows students to make mistakes. And this is something that we will definitely cover in another episode because many students are afraid of making mistakes and look for perfection, when in reality, native speakers are very sloppy with English. We don't care about how we are, how we say things. We are very sloppy. We don't do it by the book. We don't do it as it is written. We have our own style. And that is something that I really get my students thinking about. So it's about creating what I call their inner English voice. So their own personality through speaking English.
Hmm. Nice. Yeah, interesting. Yeah, that's a lot. I'm not going to kind of talk about every little bit, but I think what is most similar for me is like you're saying about the environment, the classroom environment. It's like I don't even want to call it a classroom because one, it's all online, and two, it's like I agree, I don't want that relationship. I feel like I have a very matey relationship with all of my students, I guess. So matey, it's very friendly. It's like we are mates with each other. And I don't want it to be very formal. I want it to be like that matey kind of relaxed atmosphere, relaxed environment where you feel comfortable. So for me, I guess my target audience, the people I like to teach, are those that are starting to become confident, to use the expression you used earlier, people that are coming out of their shell. I like to help them come out of their shell. So I always find that people have a very good knowledge of English. Like you were saying, they've learnt very formal English, textbook English, and often people can understand a lot, whether it's with music, whether it's with Netflix, whether it's with reading a book, reading an article, reading things on social media. They can understand, but then when they go to speak, they feel like they can't. So I help people. I like to help people take the knowledge from their brains and actually help it to come out of their mouths. So I guess to compare both of us, if you have a scale from like A1 to C2, from very, very beginner to most advanced people, I guess you are positioned more at the top. So helping people like integrate, helping people with those more advanced expressions, with the more of the cultural things, and I guess becoming British. Whereas for me, maybe it's a little bit lower. So starting maybe down at the even the A2 range sometimes, just helping those people express themselves, but through uh, like we were saying, informal conversation, informal chatting, and we will discuss, I guess, the reasons for our approaches in more depth in another episode. But for me, that's kind of how I learnt when I was learning other languages. So that's why it's reflected in my teaching style. But I also think that culture goes hand in hand. So it always goes together with language learning. It goes together with understanding maybe informal expressions or why people talk the way they do, or they do what they do, if that makes sense.
So generally, with learning English, it doesn't matter what level you're at, it should always be about understanding the people around you. And for me personally, even at the lower level, um, although they are at a very beginner level with very limited vocabulary and things, it should always be about, okay, you say this, but why do you say this? And if you start to understand the people around you, you will always start to understand their mentality and not only what they say. So I've coined a term and it's called phrase fishing. So this is a problem with social media, unfortunately, where you might hear lots and lots of expressions. You think, oh, I like that one. I'll write it down. I'll write that one down. And you almost getting your fishing rod out and reeling in all of these expressions without context. And for me, for my students, I don't know about you, Finn, but for me, it's all about adding that extra level of Britishness to those expressions, like the tone, how to say them, rather than just remembering them.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. There are a lot of people that fall into the trap of just writing everything down that they see and memorizing it, but not truly kind of understanding it, or not truly maybe like connecting with that expression. It's there are so many different expressions, and it's not like, well, like so many different expressions, words, just vocabulary in general. And it's nobody uses all of them. It's not like I say everything that I know and you don't say everything that you know. You need to have your own voice, like you say. So having these expressions, understanding them, being expressions that you like and being able to actually use them. So there are people that fall into the trap of just trying to memorize everything that they see, thinking that it'll make them a better English speaker or make them a fluent English speaker. But uh, traps, I guess, English learning traps is definitely another episode, so I don't want to dive into it uh, right now. But yeah, I think this is a good endpoint, a good place to stop right here before we get ahead of ourselves, before we start saying too much right now. So, thank you everybody for watching this first episode of ours. Hopefully, we can look back in 10, 20, 50, 100 episodes time and be like, oh, look how terrible this first episode was.
Yeah. Thanks ever so much, guys. Look forward to seeing you next week.
And don't forget to check out our YouTube channels, Instagram profiles, Instagram accounts. We will link everything below. We will try to do these videos once per week to start with, and then hopefully in the future we can push some more content out for you guys. But yeah, thank you for coming. Thank you for watching. Have a great week and see you next time.